Welcome to another Java programming class. In today's class, we are going to develop a program that is based on a question which was asked during April 2017. I have the question paper with me here. Let's go to the question and let's try to build the application for that particular question. So the question reads as follows. Write Java code to create a class with the recursive and non-recursive method to compute the factorial of a number. Let's try to build this application using Netbeans and let's see what is the result. I'm going to go to Netbeans and I'm going to click on File, New Project. I will select Java application and then I'm going to click on Next button. Here I'm going to give a name to my project and I'm going to call this as Java Factorial. You can give any name to your project. Let me finish it off. As far as the question, we are supposed to create a class. This is what is asked. So we are supposed to create a class. So let's go back to our project and let's look at the project folder over here. I have the Factorial, Java Factorial project, and inside this I have a Java Factorial method, Java Factorial class. Let me create a new class. So I'm going to right click on this package and I'm going to go to the new and I'm going to select Java class as my option. I'm going to click on this. When I click on this, Netbeans is going to ask me for the name of the class. I'm going to give the name of the class as Factorial. Again, you are free to give any name to your class. Let me finish it off. So we are supposed to create two methods inside here. The first method is for recursive and the second method is for non-recursive. So let's first go for the non-recursive method of creating the factorial. So when we are familiar, factorial is nothing but multiplication. So the return value in this case is going to be a long integer. I'm going to call this as non-recursive factorial. Let it take the input value as n and I'm supposed to return something back. So let's look at the question now. So how do I get the factorial of 5? So what is 5 factorial? 5 factorial is nothing but you have to multiply 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 3 into 2 into 1. So this is what we are supposed to do. So in other words, I have to write a loop that will constantly multiply the number one after the other. So this is for the factorial of 5. What if I am given n? So in this case, I am supposed to go to n into n minus 1 into n minus 2 into so on up to 3 into 2 into 1. So this is what I am supposed to do it. So let's take it from the reverse direction. I will start from 1 and I will reach up to n. So I need a for loop that's going to take me from 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on up to n. So let's write a for loop. I will use for I. This is a shortcut for Netbeans. If you just write for I and press tab, Netbeans will do the needful thing for you. So for I is equal to 1 up to n, it is not 0. So we have to be very careful about it, because if you start multiplying anything with 0, the whole thing becomes 0. So we always start with 1. So this is how it's going to look like. Suppose if you are asked to find the factorial of 5, then the other way of doing it is 1 into 2 into 3 into 4 into 5. In the same way, if you are asked to find the factorial of n, then it is going to be 1 into 2 into 3 into so on up to n minus 2 into n minus 1 into n. So I'm going to use this option. So I start from I is equal to 1. So I start with I is equal to 1. I reach up to I is equal to n. So this is what I am doing. So if you look at the code over here, I start with I is equal to 1 and I am supposed to reach up to I is equal to n. So let me make it as equal to. So this is what I'm going to do it. So I is equal to 1 up to I is equal to n. What is that I am supposed to do? So this for loop, as it executes again and again and again, so this is a for loop, so it's going to repeat again and again and again. So what it's going to do is, for the first time I value will be 1, next time I value will be 2, next time I value will be 3 and so on and so forth, and finally I value is going to become n. So what we are supposed to do when I is equal to 1 for the first iteration, take that value, next time multiply the previous value, next time multiply the previous value and so on up to n value. So finally what we are supposed to do is we are supposed to get the multiplication as 1 into 2 into 3 so on up to n. So this is going to give you the factorial, very long number. So let me define a long variable. I'll call this as f. I initialize it with 1. So what we are supposed to do it? As the for loop proceeds, I is going to take the value 1. Next iteration I is going to take the value 2. Next iteration I is going to take the value 3 and so on and so forth. So you take the value of I for the first iteration. So for the first time when the for loop runs, I value will be 1. Take that value, multiply it to the factorial. So it's going to become f here is f is already 1. So it's going to be 1 into 1 for the first iteration. For the next iteration, I is going to become 2 because of this for loop. So take that value of I, again multiply. So what is it going to become? It's already 1 into 2. Again multiply it, and so it's going to become 1 into 2. Again for the next iteration, I value is going to become 3. Take that value, multiply it with f. So it's going to be 1 into 2 into 3 and so on, it's going to go on. So inside this for loop, I'm going to take that value of f, multiply it with the value of I. Finally, I will have to return the value of f. So let me return the value of f. So that's easy for non-factorial, non-recursive factorial. Let's go for recursive factorial. Again, I'm going to say recursive factorial. It's going to take an integer value n. So how do we build this recursive factorial? So let's look at the question again. Suppose if you are asked to find the factorial of 5. So how do you find the factorial of 5? Factorial of 5 is nothing but 5 into factorial of 4. Now what is factorial of 4? Factorial of 4 is nothing but 4 into factorial of 3. So what is factorial of 3? Factorial of 3 is nothing but 3 into factorial of 2. Again, if you go down, what is the factorial of 2? Factorial of 2 is nothing but 2 into factorial of 1. And by the way, what is factorial of 1? Factorial of 1 happens to be 1 itself. So this is going to be 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. So in other words, it's going to be 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1, which is same as the previous one. But what's the difference here? Difference here is I have the factorial of 5. Factorial of 5 is defined in terms of one more factorial. What is factorial of 4? Factorial of 4 is defined in terms of one more factorial. What is factorial 3? Factorial 3 is defined as something again factorial of 2. In other words, factorial of n, if you take, factorial of n is nothing but n into n minus 1 factorial. What is factorial of n minus 1? Factorial of n minus 1 is n minus 1 into n minus 2 factorial. How long will you go? You will go up to, you are going to get something here. If you keep on going, you will get a point wherein you get something called as 2 into factorial of 1. Factorial of 1. So this is how it's going to go. It's going to go in the same manner. So let's now look at this whole thing. Now if you know the value of n is equal to 1, suppose if the value of n is 1, then we have the answer 1. Otherwise what we are supposed to do is, if it is greater than 1, for anything which is greater than 1, so this or this or this or this, anything that is greater than 1, what we are supposed to do is take that number, whatever number is given, take that number and then get the factorial of a number 1 less than that. So for example, take 5, then get the factorial of 1 less than 5, which is nothing but 4. So get the factorial of 4. What is the factorial of 4? Take that number 4 and 1 less than that, which is 3, get the factorial of this. What is 3 factorial? Get this number 3 and 1 less than 3, which is 2, get its factorial. So this is what we are supposed to do it. So how do I write this function? Suppose if you are given a recursive factorial function n, how do you write this is equal to? This is equal to n into recursive factorial n minus 1. Is it true? Suppose if this happens to be, this whole thing happens to be 5, so how will you write that thing? So n is 5 here, 5 into factorial of 5 minus 1, which is nothing but 4. So is it not the same as what we have done previously? So this is 5 into 4. So what you are doing in turn is you have the same function is being called with a different argument. That's all. So let's write that thing. So how do I do that thing? I'm going to check if n is greater than or equal to 1, then I am supposed to return n into recursive factorial n minus 1. What if it is equal to 1? In that case, return 1. So as simple as that. So we have seen how to achieve this whole thing. Let me give you the illustration again. Suppose if you have 5 factorial, so suppose if you have 5 factorial, so 5 factorial is nothing but 5 into 4 factorial. What is 4 factorial? 4 factorial is nothing but 4 into 3 factorial. What is 3 factorial? 3 factorial is nothing but 3 into 2 factorial. What is 2 factorial? 2 factorial is nothing but 2 into 1 factorial. What is 1 factorial? 1 factorial happens to be 1 itself. So if the value of n is equal to 1, then return directly 1. Else, if the value is greater than 1, then it must be same number, whatever the n that you are supplying, into 1 less than that, into 1 less than the factorial. This is what we are supposed to do it, and that is what we have achieved. Let's go ahead to the static void main here. Now during the examination, you can do one thing. There is no need for you to write the input statement. You can directly assign, say int n equal to 5. You can directly assign the value. However, for this demonstration, I am going to use the scanner function. So let's use the scanner function. So what is this scanner? We have already seen in the lab. So scanner comes from java.utility.scanner. Very, very important thing. If you're doing this during the examination, this import statement has to be written. Suppose if you are writing the input statement, you will have to write this import java.utility.scanner. It's required. Otherwise, you will not get the full marks. So if you dare to do that, do it. Otherwise, you can simply go ahead with directly assigning the numbers, but I'm going to do it in this way. So here I'm going to take int n is equal to s dot next int. I'll take it. Now for those who do not want to write this kind of statement, or who do not want to take a risk of forgetting to write this java.utility.scanner or all these things, what you can do is you can ignore this line, and you can also ignore this part. Instead of this, just directly assign the value, then go ahead with it. So it's up to you. So if you want, you can write that whole thing. Now because I have written everything in a neat way, I will do it in a systematic way. So it's not a great idea to just show a blinking cursor to a user and expect them to guess what you are expecting. So I'm going to just write system.out.println. Again, let me remind you again, this is not really required, but I'm doing it. Enter a number. So this is good for the user. So user know that I'm supposed to write the number, not my password or my username. So you just give a prompt to the user. So everything looks systematic. Now what we are supposed to do here is we have the class which is called as Factorial. Let's get the object out of that Factorial. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say Factorial f is equal to new Factorial. That's all. Then I'm going to use yes out, but in this case, because we are all familiar with the C programming, I'm going to use printf, which is very familiar to all of you. So I'm going to write over here a recursive factorial of %d is, for those who are not very familiar, in C you may have ld here, you may write ld here, but when it comes to Java, just write d for integer. You are all familiar with that. So this is your same old printf from your C program. So now what is that I am supposed to do? Go to this object Factorial. This is an object. In that object put a dot, and I am supposed to call a recursive function. So I will take recursive factorial en. So I did this. In the same way, I am going to do it with the next one, and that is non-recursive. Non-recursive factorial of this is, I will change this function to non-recursive. So it is same thing, you are just calling non-recursive en. So that's all you need to do. I want this one to come in the next line, so I'm going to just put /n. You're all familiar with this from your C programming. So let's go ahead and run the program. Let me run it. Let me enter the value of 5, and I'm going to get the output over here. Let's see the output. So recursive factorial is 120, recursive factorial of 5 is 120, recursive non-recursive also it is 120. Let me try one more time. Let me run it one more time. Let me give you very simplest one. n is equal to 2. In both the case, factorial of 2 is 2. 2 into 1 is 2. Again, whether you do it in the recursive way or non-recursive way, it is one and the same. Finally, last one I'm going to try, and that is 0. What is the factorial of 0 in both the case? So as far as the definition, factorial of 0 is 1. In both the cases, it's 1. That's all you need to do. Again, let me tell you, for your examination, during the examination, do not take the risk of writing these statements unless and otherwise you really know very well how to go about writing this, because it requires you to write an import statement. That's really required. You don't write this one thing, your program will be, you will not get full marks for your program. So instead of this, during the examination, write up to here and just directly assign the value of n. For example, n is equal to 4. Directly assign it and then write these two statements so that you are sure that you will not miss up any marks. That's all in this short tutorial. Thank you.